Okay, this is segment 4 of lecture 1, and for this segment we're going to talk a little bit about visualization history. So what does that mean? Well, one of the things that we're interested in doing is examining visualization through different lenses. From the computer science lens, what we're interested often in computer science is using computer graphics and user interface design techniques, and we are concerned with presenting data to users by means of images. And one of the things that computer scientists tend to do is to produce a tool or a method for generating images from multi-dimensional data, from data sets and so on and so forth. The psychology lens of visual analytics is where psychologists are interested in the formation of mental visual images. Psychologists are concerned with what's going on in people's minds and the act of processing or interpreting visual terms and the cognitive things that go on in one's mind, the things you're thinking about as you look at visual images, visual analytics. Those are things that are of interest from the psychological perspective. From the design perspective, design is the process of putting things into visual form. And in the previous lecture segment, we spoke briefly about putting things in visual form as illustration, by contrast to having the machine put things into visual form according to the program that you design. And where design is interested in the art of assigning representational codes and techniques to data attributes and conveying meaning. And it's also the practice of assembling images. And the art perspective, finally, on this list is to treat visual analytics as a medium where representations of data are used to create art, to provoke and invoke something in the mind or in the feelings of the user. Okay. One of the things that we often find ourselves doing is when we're using visualization tools is there's this back and forth process of the kinds of things that people think about when you're using a visualization system. So on the left, we have analyze, explore, and discover. And part of the work that goes on there is you work on a tool for the purposes of producing information to be consumed by this process on the right, in some sense, where you use the information to explain, to illustrate, and to communicate. And typically there's this communication back and forth of producing images to be consumed and then consuming those images to think about what new images to produce. And one of the things that we're really interested in throughout this course is to make the invisible aspects of what's going on in an information set visible and understandable. So this thing of making visible things invisible things visible has been something that people have been doing for a long time. So this thing here is something called the tabula Peutingeriana. Sorry, I can never pronounce this. Peutingeriana. And what it is a roadmap of ancient Rome. It is actually was developed on a very, very long scroll, and we're seeing the westernmost part of this scroll. And you will notice that it doesn't look very much like a map of Western Europe at all. In fact, what this is a map. The primary piece, the bit that's sticking out in the center from the far right to the middle left, is actually the Iberian Peninsula, also known as Spain and Portugal. And Britain is above and rotated to the left. You can see that, sorry, I'm pointing the wrong way. Just in the upper right-hand corner here, you can see that is labeled Britannia, and to the left of that is another thing that is unexplored except for the presence of two mountains. That's Ibernia, also known as Ireland. And on the bottom there, this is North Africa, Morocco, essentially. And what you can see are rivers have been illustrated as well as roads, and the roads have this kind of sawtooth pattern, and the reason why they have that sawtooth pattern is those roughly are stops, inns along the road that are roughly a day's walk from one location to the next. So this thing is really constructed for the purposes of walking along Roman roads around the Roman Empire, Western Europe. The map is much bigger than this, and this is just a subset that's kind of reasonably easy to understand, even though the geography of this thing is very much distorted from the geography that that we're used to seeing on regular, Mercator projection maps. We'll get back to this notion of distortion a little later on in this segment. Another example from historical times, this thing is called Nightingale's coxcomb. It is a visualization of the number of people who were dying or from various causes during the Crimean War, which took place in southern Russia, the Crimean Peninsula.